We've mentioned before that everything in text is technically a character, including things like tabs and line breaks. So can we just include those in our strings? We can, though we have to know how. For example, imagine we wanted to declare a string with a new line character inside the string. In other words, the string should have a line break within it. You might be familiar with this from popular messaging platforms where if you use Shift-Enter, you insert a new line instead of sending the message. So if you want to send a multi-line message, you press Shift-Enter between each line. So can we do that just by putting a new line in the middle of our string? Well, as it turns out, no. By default, Python will interpret this new line in the context of the line of code, not in the context just of that string. In other words, ending the line right there tells Python that this line of code is done, as opposed to telling Python to put a new line character or put a line break inside the string that we're declaring. So running this code gives us a syntax error, and it says an EOL was encountered while scanning the string literal. In other words, we encountered an EOL, which stands for end of line, before finding the end of the string. So how can we put a line break into a string? Well, Python gives us a special way to do that. Python attaches special meaning to this pair of characters in this order when put inside a string. /n is interpreted by Python as a request for a line break in the middle of the string. And so when we print this string, what we see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9, 0 separated by a line break. Where the /n occurred inside the string is rendered in Python as a line break. This actually represents a kind of general principle. Inside a string in Python, a / is considered an escape character. And the entire sequence that follows the escape character is called the escape sequence. When Python sees the /, it tries to interpret it and the next character or characters as a special sequence that carries special meaning. So when Python reads this string and sees this /, it knows to check the next character and see if the next character is part of an escape sequence. And if so, apply that special meaning. /n has a special meaning, and so it's rendered in a special way. There are a few of these that we might be interested in. Here we see 4 of them. As we showed before, /n inserts a line break, and as a result, between the 5 and the 6 in our string, we see that Python breaks the line and starts a new line. /t is a tab character. So what's happening over here between the 0 and the A is that Python is inserting whatever would have happened if you pressed the tab key. In this case, a tab covers 6 characters, and so A is moved to the end of the current block of 6 characters. In this case, it renders just as a space, but if we put the tab earlier, we would have seen a bigger gap. / can also be used with whatever character we use to start our string to tell Python not to terminate it quite yet. So this is another way around not being able to put quotation marks or apostrophes inside a string. If a character that would otherwise terminate the string is preceded by a /, then Python knows to just put the character as is instead of letting it terminate the string. And so between E and F, we see a quotation mark. If we hadn't had that /, that quotation mark would have terminated that string, and Python would not have known what to do with the rest of that string. But because it's preceded by that /, Python knows to just print the quotation mark as is. And finally, we also might see a double /. A double / occurs because sometimes maybe we actually need to just print /n. For example, imagine we were printing a directory on our computer, and we needed to print c:/new. If we had that as a string, then by default, Python would interpret the /n in the middle as a new line character, and it would print c: followed by ew. The double / just tells us to ignore the second / as a possible escape character and print whatever is there as is. And so as a result, over here, we see /n is printed instead of a line break. And note also, /n isn't the only way to put a new line character inside a string. Generally by default, Python interprets the end of a line as terminating the current line of code instead of being a new line character inside a string, unless the string is declared with those triple quotation marks, or triple apostrophes. Triple apostrophes force Python to interpret everything as part of the string until it encounters the second set of triple apostrophes. So that's another way to print strings with new line characters inside them.